It is the 5th of September, 2012, and we're joined here in the Twin Cities studio by Dr. Anthony Jones, the bringer of the haunted questions of Christianity. Now, a little programming note for next week. Next week's show will not be broadcasting live on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Central Time. It's going to be broadcasting live at 11:30 a.m. on Tuesday, September 11th. Tuesday, September 11th, with Phyllis Tickle. I'm going to be in Memphis, Tennessee. And Phyllis and I are going to have a little chat about song.
That's all I can hear.
Yeah. Can you make sure he's got enough volume there, producer? And I don't know why. I don't know why, as I was looking around the internet for music that would go for these haunted questions, I sort of picked some techno music from the 1980s, Under the Milky Way. Yeah.
What?
Can you turn him up? Because I don't hear him in my headphones.
Still working the kinks out?
No. It's just when people are soft talkers, we gotta really tune them down a little bit.
I can talk more loudly.
Yeah.
Yes, the questions that haunt Christianity.
The questions that haunt Christianity. Now, you've been asking around on your very famous blog for people to submit questions of their own.
Well, yeah, I launched this new series yesterday, in part because of the conversations you and I had about me coming on the radio show on occasion. And kind of as you relaunch the show, looking for a different angle than I used to come on the old show.
Yes, the old days.
The show of which we shall not speak.
Yeah, the show that we speak to in respect.
Okay. I do miss the State Fair.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
wow.
I loved it. In fact, when
it was the highlight of my week, having not gone to the State Fair.
When I went to the State Fair this year, I was only able to go very briefly, but I had to bring my kids, and I did go. We were at the very north end of the fair, and we were walking south, and I had a flashback.
Yes.
To John Music mooning you and me.
When I dropped trowel?
When he dropped trowel last year as we're walking in.
To the state, yeah.
Remember?
Yes, that's right.
He wasn't maybe at his finest.
Were you peeking about then? Were you?
I think I was incredibly hungover.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Oh, was I?
You were not hungover.
I was still in it.
You were still drunk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You sat in the back of the van.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Remember we picked him up, and man, I could smell.
Yeah.
It was, and then we had a great time. We went and had egg coffee and ate at the little
Swedish stuff.
Diner and had pancakes and had the show. It was a great time. I miss it. But you were
we'll just have to move ahead without our egg coffee.
Somehow. Although I was wondering if I could do like some, maybe my bit on the show could be doing like a monologue about a mythic town in central Minnesota that time forgot.
Yes,
I've been done.
I don't think it's going to work. Yeah, I don't think it's.
Yeah, that idea doesn't have legs.
Yeah, might work for a week or two.
So you're relaunching the show. And I was just looking for a little something different on my blog, and actually had been talking with my literary agent.
Oh.
And we were kind of trying to think about, I know you've done some thinking about this, about like...
Well, a lot of us have sat around.
I'm sorry, Tony. That
agents.
$7 microphone, I mean, you literally have to almost put your lips on it.
You got it. Yeah. And so, where do I want to go? What do I want to, what impact do I want to have on... the Christian church in the next several years? And I think one of the things that I like to do in my writing is to engage people with the difficult questions of Christianity and not to flinch and not to give the Sunday school answers, not to answer with cliches, but to actually try to be honest about some of the things that are hurdles for people in Christianity. So that's where I came up with this questions that haunt Christianity. And how it'll go is on my blog, it'll happen every week, and people have already been submitting. I've gotten a couple dozen questions.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, he's playing haunted house music right now, so this is why you need to wear your headphones.
Oh, that's good. Okay.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. You don't need. Just keep doing your part.
Yeah, that's good. And and then every Tuesday I'll post the question. For the week and allow my readers to comment and give their best shot at it. And people will probably post links and hopefully write about it on their own blogs. And then on Friday I'll give my shot at an answer. So we'll kind of hang out there during the week. And then maybe, as often as I'm invited, I'll come on to this show on Wednesday and kind of talk through the question of the week. And so, yeah.
And people who submitted the questions already, what kinds of things are they? What kinds of things are they haunted by?
Well, there's a lot of why do bad things happen to good people?
Really?
Yeah. Theodicy questions.
Oh, jeez.
A lot of questions about the God of the Old Testament and how the God of the Old Testament seems rather distinct from the God of grace and love of Jesus in the New Testament. Questions about the veracity of the New Testament, of episodes that are recorded there, like the resurrection of Jesus, the miracles, things like that. There were a couple questions about Paul, like if Paul wouldn't have done what Paul did, would we have Christianity today?
Oh, so
like,
is Christianity
really
sort of a social movement?
And really the
first
invention
century.
of Paul. Like, did Paul take the events of Jesus' life and turn them into something
religion
that people could then have faith in? So it's some really intriguing questions. It seems to me so far that most of the questions are coming from, probably people who read my blog, obviously. So that means people who are somehow people of faith.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping that people without faith, I'm hoping that atheists and agnostics, the people who say, look, I'm not a Christian because of this issue, like evolution or the Bible or when my mom died of cancer, or whatever the case may be. I hope that people who the questions that haunt them actually keep them outside of the Christian faith will send those into. I think they will over time.
Now, it seems like there's two kinds of haunting questions in life. Well, one of those haunting questions are like, I can't seem to get an answer to this, and I want to find it. Kinds of ones, right? Like where that drive you in some sort of maybe even a positive pursuit of life. Then there are those haunting questions that you don't want anyone to bring up because of fear, right? Like the ones that where maybe you're haunted by the suggestion of that question, right? Yeah. You know what I mean by the difference?
For sure.
So there's people for whom when someone raises an issue, that's what gets them unnerved. Do you plan to try to help people figure out those deep down questions that they really are fearful of? That have sort of fallen into the no talk kinds of areas, right? Like, well, if you're kind of comfortable with Christianity, you've probably set all those aside. But is there something that you just don't want to come up? Like you don't want, because it would shatter your own faith, or it would freak you out, as opposed to somebody else doesn't have the answer to it.
Yeah, I mean, I probably in this series won't come up with the questions myself. Like if somebody asks a question, I don't know I don't know what questions those are.
I see.
Those seems like maybe you're talking about existential questions that people have. But I think you're right in the fact that a lot of people who are faithful Christians or of any religion, they have like, I'm just not going to go there. You know, like I'm not going to upset the apple cart.
That's right, because they might even be the same question, but the relationship the person has, in one sense, it's like, I really want the answer to that. And the other is, I really don't want anyone to bring that up.
Well,
right?
What's
That's
interesting?
what I mean by the two
I hear
kinds.
you. I hear you. You know, as you know, well, I've been blogging since 2004, and I have a pretty good sense of who reads my blog. And they're not the latter kind of people. They're really not the kind of people who don't want, like, there's certain questions that are off limits. They don't want their faith shaken. They're really, I mean, the people who read my blog at least are pretty pretty much doubters, pretty much people who want to upset the apple cart.
Yeah.
Not everybody, of course,
Uh-huh.
but the people who are involved in the comment section. I mean,
Yeah.
there are several thousand people who read it every day and are kind of engaged in it. And I don't think over these last 8 years, have attracted many people who are like just want a blog that makes them feel good and kind of affirms what they already believe.
Sure.
So those people may come because they start hearing about this series, and we pick them up through the radio show or through Patheos's broader website or whatever. But as you know, there aren't many questions. There really aren't any questions that haven't been answered already.
That's what I was going to ask you about next. Like, what kinds of questions do you think?
Well,
are going to have a real fresh approach?
I want to do a couple things. One is I want to take a fresh approach toward questions that have already been answered myriad times by theologians and biblical scholars, and try to be like bluntly, brutally honest about it. Especially if Christianity. If kind of historic Orthodox Christianity doesn't have a good answer for that question, that's going to be the conclusion. We don't have a good answer for that question. Surely there are some new questions. If we discover there was life on Mars, or if we talk about what quantum reality really is.
By the way, I saw that Prometheus movie.
Oh yeah, is it good?
Have you seen it?
No, it was on the plane, on the Emirates airplane.
Yes, it was on my plane too, and I watched it. Did you know this movie?
Oh yeah.
Prometheus.
Oh, very familiar with it.
Horrid.
Oh,
Horrible.
loved it.
It looks horrible.
You loved it?
Loved it. Great movie.
Isn't like
beautiful.
Isn't it like the prequel to Aliens versus Predators or something?
Are we talking about the same movie?
Yeah, it's a prequel to the Alien series.
I've heard it's horrible. It got horrible reviews.
Look, it is not a horrible movie. It is a good movie. It's a great movie. Great story.
Really?
Don't listen to the negative hype.
No, I saw it. I watched it, and I got done, and I felt I was trapped in the airplane, and I felt angry.
Couldn't you watch another movie?
No, it ended right. In fact, right as the plane was landing, like we were taxiing, and they kept the thing playing.
They do that now.
They do.
I
mean, all of a sudden,
they used to. They have to shut everything off at 10,000 feet, and
there's
now
no rules anymore.
Oh man, on Emirates Air, I just flew, tens of thousands of miles on Emirates Air, whatever. Yeah, there are no rules. I mean, they have different kinds of rules.
Like smoking hookahs in the back.
I mean, basically. Okay, by the way, this is a bit of a, if you want to talk about airplanes for a second.
Yes.
I was on the world's largest airplane, an A380.
Truly?
Really?
The world's largest airplane.
Well,
it's
that
an
Airbus
Airbus
thing?
A380.
Oh, wow.
Oh, it's on.
Great.
The business and first class is the second floor, and it runs the entire length from front to back.
Really?
There's a shower.
Did you get to sit up there?
No, are you kidding me?
Well, you kind of made it sound like
there's a shower in first class.
Really? That's going to make it a lot easier for that airplane hookup than trying to squeeze into that little bathroom.
It's the Mile High Club in the shower. Okay, the shower, you buy 10 minutes in the shower. I want you to guess how much it is for 10 minutes in the shower from JFK to Dubai and Emirates Air.
$32.
$32?
$32.
$250.
Yeah. $18,000 for a 10-minute shower.
No, it isn't. Can't be.
Google it.
Like you walked up, and if somebody said, "I want to take a shower in there," they're like, "That's going to cost you a Kia Sedona,
right? A Mini Cooper,
an $18,000 10-minute shower."
No,
I'm not kidding you.
Are you sure there isn't some like?
No, that's it. That's how much a shower costs for 10 minutes on Emirates Air.
There's no extras.
It's sheiks, man. It's sheiks. You know who's up in the first? Like people for whom money is literally no object, because the plane flight itself to sit in first class from JFK to Dubai must be $20,000.
Well, yeah, that would seem right, but all right.
Is that something else?
That's something else.
It's the only plane. It's the only commercial plane with a shower on it. Is Emirates Air, the A380s that they fly between JFK and Dubai. It's a long flight, but I mean, if you can't go 12 and a half hours without a shower, and look, I've been to the Middle East. A lot of those guys go many days without showers.
Hope Ani's not listening. Yeah. Well,
no, I'm not. It's not disparaging to them.
Fair enough. Yeah,
but it just is.
It's like the Seinfeld episode with the low flow shower heads. They're from Croatia. Apparently, they're very meticulous about their showers. Yeah. Jerry's like, not from the footage I've seen.
So yes,
that
I
is
was just
hilarious.
on that.
Well, this Prometheus movie is, it's got this woman on this quest
Big things come from
things
small beginnings.
to find out where they're from and all this kind of business.
Oh right,
and
it's
bizzity-babbity
yeah,
and
it's a Genesis story kind of, right?
Yes. Mhm.
Yeah, but it tries to raise this question, and her thing in the movie is, well, this happens 3 or 4 times. Well, I don't know. Somebody says, "How do you know?" It's like they're looking for the aliens or the
Right.
previous life
Right.
forms that created them because they found them in all these
It takes that
places.
mythos that we are like seeds from from alien. you know,
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And so people will ask, because her father said this to her.
Who was a missionary.
Who was a missionary.
Yeah.
So she's a religious girl. Said, well, Dad, how do you know? And he goes, I don't know, but it's what I choose to believe. So that becomes the frame.
Oh sure.
So now it becomes this movie about knowledge and belief, right? That's what they're trying to tease out. Would you say that's one of the themes?
I would say there's an element to that.
Okay, and it kind of gets into this. Well, don't let the facts overly affect your beliefs because they're really operating in 2 different spheres.
I think there are a lot of people who inhabit this planet, probably the majority of the 6.5 billion people on this planet,
You think that?
for whom religion and faith isn't something that they stumble over intellect and rationality to get to. They just go right around intellect and rationality to get to it.
Yeah, right.
So I realize, like, when I write a book in which I'm trying to kind of I'm writing a book right now, trying to figure out, is there an intellectually justifiable reason for prayer, as traditionally conceived, where we communicate with the divine and the divine does stuff as a result of our prayers?
Yeah.
Well, look, of the 6.5 billion people on the planet, most won't be interested in my book, right? They're
Yeah.
like, look, why? I mean,
You don't think you'll
I have
sell
friends,
billions?
I have a spouse who are like, why do you need? Like, what's the point of asking these questions?
Yeah.
But for a lot of us, for me,
Uh-huh.
I bet for both of you,
For a couple of us, anyway.
and for I think a lot of people in the West, at least, who live in the post-Enlightenment, post-scientific revolution kind of world, we do want to jibe rationality, science, intellect, thoughtfulness with faith, religion, and kind of the rites by which we pattern our spiritual lives. So I actually find that really an enjoyable challenge personally, to tease those things out and try to think them through and get in conversation with people. And I don't necessarily think any of these things that I'm going to write about or that we'll talk about on the show have an answer.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Like what's your approach? So talk about that a bit.
Well, it depends on the question.
What's your approach to the question? Like, is it validating the question? Is it coming up with a fresh answer? Is it showing people how these questions, like the archetype of these questions, have been dealt with previously? How do you think, or you can do, does it depend on the question?
It depends somewhat on the question. So some questions, I imagine, I'm going to say, there have been here are the kind of historic categories of answers that this falls into, and they're all unsatisfying ultimately. So here's a crack at something that, and which everybody's like, that's not new. This blah 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 guy said that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't read that guy.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That happens to you a lot.
I've experienced that before. Yeah,
Other ones, I think
I
I'm
would
going
come
to
up
say.
with a conclusion. Someone would say, "Oh, well, you're something." Like, no, I came up with that one myself. Did that person? And I like to refer to those people as early Pagittians.
Yes, proto-Pagidians.
Proto-Pagittians.
You should call them. Other ones, I think I'll probably say, you know what? Calvin answered this, Augustine answered this, Aquinas answered this. But I think Luther's answer on this one really is a great answer. And here's what here's a kind of Lutheran response to that. Like, this is a really great answer. And I think other ones I'll just be like,
well, I would encourage people then when they write you a question to, in whatever form they can or how much they know, to tell you what answers have already not been satisfying to them.
yeah,
Right. So like I don't know, they have a question about suffering, and they're like, okay, I've heard the classic answer
Right.
to suffering.
Yeah.
Or I've heard the free choice answer to suffering. That's insufficient.
And
So what else
What
is
else
there?
is there? Yeah.
Because there's, again, on these two kinds of questions, there's questions that people have heard all the available answers they could find themselves, that they could find themselves,
Yeah.
and they don't work. And there's other times where people have just said, like, seriously, I have no idea. Like, I've never actually thought of this before. And I find in Christian apologetics, which you're doing a certain kind of apologetics,
yeah,
right?
for sure. Absolutely.
This
That's
is
what
an
it is.
apologetics thing. There are the approaches that say, I have a system by which every possible answer is available somewhere in my system, right? And that works as long as you buy the system.
Yeah.
When you don't buy the system any longer, and I'm not just thinking about Mormons, but in conversations I've had with Mormons, like they come to the door or whatever, and they knock, or they see them on the street, and you start, like, these cats are unshakable, right? Yeah. Like, somehow they've been trained where every question that you could come up with, they've just got they're just ready. They're not shaken one bit. There's no sense that they've, and at least when they're on Mormon mission. Now, I think a middle-aged Mormon person's probably thinking some of that stuff through. But the apologetics response is to always have a ready answer, as opposed to find a way to approach the question in an honoring way.
Well, I hope that people will see, even from how I titled the series, that I think there are questions that haunt Christianity. And it does, I was thinking about this earlier when we were talking a few minutes ago, that, like, there are some big questions that haunt Mormonism. Primarily the craziness of its founder.
Yeah.
Like the actual
mental
illness of its founder.
Yeah.
But when you talk to a lot of Mormons, they will not admit that there's any problem there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I remember, when I was in seminary, having Jehovah's Witnesses come to the door. Same deal. And the mistake they made was that they knocked on the door with 5 seminary students living in this house, and we invited them in, and we pulled out our Greek New Testaments. We're like, let's start with John 1:1, because you've mistranslated it.
Yeah.
Well, that point, they were like, well, we're going to come back with an elder, and then they, never did. So I think I was just in a country last week where Christianity is 0.6% of the population.
Oh.
It's the 4th largest religion. It's a tiny minority. Meanwhile, I watched, and this was an unforgettable once-in-a-lifetime experience, but through kind of a fate and circumstances, we got swept into a ceremony at a Hindu temple in which men were walking across a bed of glowing hot 1,000-degree coals.
Barefooted.
Oh my gosh, carrying children, running across this.
Huh.
It was, I'll talk about it on Sunday night at Solomon's Porch. It was, I hate to use the word unbelievable because it was believable. I mean, I believe it. I watched it.
Yeah, you sure wasn't?
It was not unbelievable.
It wasn't some Chris Angel mind.
No, it
freak
really
thing
wasn't.
Going on, Hindu
it wasn't
version.
Tony Robbins who just did it, and people got their feet burned or whatever a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
in L.A. when Tony Robbins did it. No, these people didn't do it because they were at a self-help seminar or because it was a Vegas magician. They had made a commitment. Most of them, oh my gosh, 99% of them were men who ran over the coals. A few women did. And they were, a lot of them, holding children, because this is a temple to the Hindu god Shiva, and they had made a commitment to Shiva, a vow. If I have a child, blah, 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 if I have a male child or whatever, I will run across the
I'll run the coals.
I'll run the coals to thank you if you answer my prayer. And then they have a child, which isn't a miraculous occurrence to have a child.
Really? Huh.
Yeah. It happens millions of
It
times a day.
It happens every 7 seconds. Yeah.
But then they carry these children and
you're
run
get
across
one or
the
other.
coals.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, it was unlike anything I've ever seen. It was breathtaking. And I was with this group, and we were the only white people there.
And their feet didn't burn.
Well, I didn't get to. It was once it started. So it's a long story, and I don't know how much time you have, but
a definable amount, but that's right. You got 7 minutes in you? Is it a 7 minute
we're
story?
We're with the. I mean, we can. I'll not take 7 minutes to tell it, so we can chat about it a little bit. But we're with the World Vision staff woman, and we're doing a little shopping. It's our first day there. We don't really have anything planned. We're trying to get over jet lag.
Yeah.
We're in Sri Lanka.
Oh.
Okay.
This is like first couple days there.
Yeah, like we had landed the night before. And she's like, well, we could go shopping this other place, or there's like this ceremony going on at a Hindu temple. And I'm like, Hindu temple?
Yeah.
And kind of rallied then everybody else was in the same boat. So we drove over there, and like she didn't tell us what was going on or whatever. And there were thousands of people there, thousands of people. And there were people singing, and there's a processional that goes by with this Shiva up in this flowered canopy type of thing, and there's bulls with long horns just walking through the crowd, like people running away, and you're swept into this very frenzy like atmosphere, right? And one of the guys, Matthew Paul Turner, a mutual friend of ours, he had a big camera, and I'm married to a photojournalist, so everything was like cordoned off, and on the inside were these guys stoking the fire and burning these huge logs on this fire in a pit in the ground.
Yeah.
And all these guys just would like, I'll show the pictures at church on Sunday night, but wearing just like saris on the bottom, and they're just sweating, and other guys are coming and pouring water on them because it's so hot. You can feel how hot it is, and we're 30, 40 yards away, and you can feel the heat. And so I said to Matthew, because he's trying to take pictures, and we're, everybody's been there for hours and hours to get up closer to these fences. And I said to Matthew, like, tell him you're a journalist. Because there were guys inside with cameras. Yeah. A couple video cameras and a couple still cameras. And so he goes over to a police officer, and he says, journalist. And the police officer waves him in. They wave like this, not like this. They wave like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Palm down.
Waves him in. And then the police officer points to all the other white people, the other 9 of us, because there are no white, like, from the time I got off the plane in Colombo till the time I got back on the plane in Colombo, 8 days later, I didn't see another white person except for our people in the group. He like points to all of us and waves us all in. So we all go right in the center, and it's just us and the families of the men who are walking. And people are shouting at us to sit down, and like we don't know, the language, and it's so we watch for like an hour as they stoke the fire, and then the flames get down, and these guys had left the temple right when we arrived, and they were, I guess, touring around the streets. And then there's this long, it's like the way cattle are led into like an area to be slaughtered or whatever, through like their cattle gates.
Cattle gates, yeah.
Yeah, put up like, and then the guys start lining up in the cattle gates, and they get all the big logs out of the fire, so it's just embers, and they've been burning it for all day. I mean, it's like glowing, like pulsing red. And then the shouting starts, and the guys start coming in, and everybody stands up, even though they've been telling us to sit down. Everybody stands up. And when we got there were 36 police officers in the middle. It starts, I don't see a police officer. They're gone. Right? Gone. And
they've been here before, these guys.
Yeah.
That
happens every year.
They've seen this.
Yeah.
We know it's about that. And we're inside with our backs against this one of the cattle gate fences, and behind us is a huge empty pond, big pit right behind us. So, I mean, I can't like just report on what happened when they ran across the fires, because all part of it for us was this experience of like, then this frenzy starts, and people start rushing, like the men start running across the coals, and hundreds of people start coming in where the police had been up by the temple at the other end. Now it's just pandemonium. Like it is complete insanity of a crowd, right? Thousands of people screaming. It's dark. Men are running across burning coals with their children. There's a guy, walking around with this canopy with all these bells on it. There are bulls, which they're sacred in Hinduism, right? So they're just like allowed to wander around, and they're just pushing people. And anytime one of these bulls comes near, people freak out, and everyone starts pushing the other way. I mean, it was one of those deals. It was like, I can't imagine a Christian worship activity that would have the energy and panic and frenzy of that experience of that Hindu festival.
So were you able to talk to any of the Sri Lankans that you were with who were at this and could sort of tell about it? Or
later we talked to people and we asked them about it. Hinduism is the second largest religion in Sri Lanka. Buddhism it's officially a Buddhist country. And but there are a lot of Hindus. So
the Buddhists there go the Hindus again running across the coals.
Well, what's
over there
funny is there are a lot of people who are kind of Buddhist Hindu. Buddhism and Hindu blend well.
Yeah,
and so it's like they take the Buddhism and then they mesh it with because they don't have a divinity in Buddhism. Right. So a lot of Buddhists worship at Hindu temples, and there are a couple Buddhist Hindu temples where they're like what we would call syncretism, and they would call this works.
Yeah.
Like these two fit.
Right.
We don't see a problem here.
Yeah.
So people did tell us that they'd made a vow to Shiva. I mean, we met people later who walked the coals in earlier years. And when asked, does it hurt? They say, you're not even thinking about the coals. I mean, they tell you not to look down, just to look straight ahead and just go. And it happens so quickly, and there's so much adrenaline.
But their feet don't blister? Or
no, you don't
like
feel
that.
your feet. I mean, there are, I looked online later, and there are
stories of damage.
Stories of children. I mean, because children ran through it.
Oh, boy.
I'll show a picture at Solomon's Porch on Sunday night of a kid who's maybe 12 or 13 who goes through it. And there are stories of children who've fallen, and had been horribly burned. I mean, it's 1,000. It's got to be 1,000 degrees.
Oh, my gosh.
But none of that happened when we were there. I mean, that's the exception to the rule. The rule is that these people do it, and you're doing something that almost is defies human imagination.
Yeah.
Why you would do it.
Yeah.
And here they do it, and they do it every year, and hundreds and hundreds of men did it.
All right, can you stick around in the third act and tell us about your book, this book you're writing on prayer?
Yeah, sure.
You got time?
Yeah, I got
You got stuff to do?
I got nothing but time.
You got a chance to stick with us? Speaking of sometimes things that blend together and don't, how about this? You know this song? Familiar with it?
Yeah, totally.
Do you know the lyrics? We'll talk about the lyrics when we come back here after the break.
Guitar player for this band died at age 43 yesterday. 46. Yeah.
Is this Starship?
Yeah.
If only you believe like I believe.
If you only believe in miracles, then we'd get by. But that's not the shocking part of the lyrics.